Chapter 17. Goals, Ideals, Self-Discipline. Consistency, Perseverance. Everyone knows what a goal is. It's when you get a hockey puck past a goalie. But there are other kinds of goals too, even more important. Field goals, etc. But other than that, people set goals of all kinds to achieve specific results. But many people set goals they fail to meet. Why? The teachings address different reasons and cures for this problem, including the areas of consciously developing self-discipline, and dealing with subconscious programming. Developing self-discipline. During my first year at the monastery, I was having a hard time keeping up with my schedule, and getting my personal meditation schedule done consistently every day. I was also having trouble concentrating during meditations. My workload was intense. Between working in the kitchen, studies, courses, sessions with Zane, meditations and technique practices, and music practice, retraining, I was stretched very thin. Hairline thin. I was only getting about 3 hours sleep, every few days. I thought I'd reached a breaking point. So I sought out Zane for advice. He was eating at the time, and had to stop in order to help me. I know you think you are under severe hardship, and in part you are. You are in a period of learning self-discipline. And without it, no one becomes anything of worth. Even in the worldly occupations. Those who are wealthy, who did not inherit their wealth, do you think they have not gone through hardships to learn self-discipline? I don't know. Many of the most respected, most influential, most powerful, and most money-making of the worldly professions, have such rigorous periods of training. Doctors, lawyers, Wall Street execs, record or movie execs, business execs. Any big profession has its big dues to pay first, and its hard times to endure. And the military, whether you are an 18-year-old buck private, or you are in officer's school being groomed for the admiralty, you have severe periods of discipline, severe hardships during training, and worse. But it too eventually pays off for those who choose that life, if they make it through it alive, or without dropping out or being kicked out. I see your point. In fact, I hadn't thought about it, but I'd personally heard of the hardships of intern doctors from a friend. Interns are kind of like elders, I guess. They're no longer students really, but not full doctors either. And they have to pull hours like mine, with similar lack of sleep. But they are having to make life and death decisions at the same time. And those of any path in life, who go through their periods of hardships, and learn self-discipline, usually have their respective payoffs, when they finally become adepts in their profession. Just like the doctors, and such, do they not? That's true. And my chosen path was no different. Well, actually it was very different. I was training to become enlightened, to become a sort of saint. Someone to serve God, and the people of the world. Expecting it to be easy would be naive. But the payoff of enlightenment, universal harmony, and peace of mind, was also the biggest payoff of them all. Even though it would still be the hardest work. My talk with Zane definitely helped. But still, knowing all that, didn't really make it that much easier for me while I was going through my own hard times of training. It just gave me more conviction. But sometimes actions do more for you than words. One time I slept through a very important morning group meditation and meeting that was on my schedule. I was lucky I wasn't in the army. If I were in the military, it would have been like missing revelry, calisthenics, and a first aid and war game briefing. If I were a med student, training for heart surgery, I just missed a class on resuscitation and artery suturing. You get the picture. It was a bad move. But it was the last time I ever did that. I woke up in the cold pool. An unheated cold pool, in Tibet. An elder's initiation in a way. Tough love. But I had chosen this path, and I had let myself fall asleep, on duty. And like I said, it did the trick. While my training, and learning self-discipline was hard, I never regretted it. And it has come in very handy on many occasions. In fact, it still serves me to this day. Even this book would not have been completed otherwise, because I have been so ill during most of the past year. Deathly ill. I rarely have even been out of bed, yet for the most part, I work on it anyway, from waking, to sleep. No one without similar training and self-discipline could have accomplished it. But I must, and will, finish it. I'm not doing it for money. I have no need for that. I am not writing it for people's entertainment either. I am only doing it for those who find it helpful, or desperately need it. Back on that particularly hard day for me though, the one in which I woke up in the pool, I started feeling a bit sorry for myself, getting negative, and my selfish separate self began to use my mind to sidetrack me. It wasn't bad, but it was performing the very early phase, subconscious, tricks, maneuvering for, building a case. A case for what? For eventually getting the heck away from all these things I was doing, and the people here, all the stuff that was threatening its power and control over me. At such an early stage, only a true teacher can perceive those kind of mind games. As I walked around thinking heavy thoughts, I went by Zane, who noticed my energy, and as fate would have it, he was trying to eat again. "What's troubling you?" he said as if he didn't know. "Nothing." "Then I am a fool?" "No, it's just the same thing we talked about. Self-discipline, and I'm having a hard time concentrating during my meditations, and getting them all done. I don't know if you noticed it, but I was asleep this morning during the meditations and meeting, and some of the elders threw me in the pool." "Noticed it? Who do you think thought of the pool thing? I know how much you love freezing water first thing in the morning." "Thanks. I do it every morning myself. It is very healthy, and very good for the self-discipline too. Did you know there are people who join clubs that go into the freezing water for fun? I guess I'm an honorary member now." He laughed. I was already feeling better, more positive, and more on track again. It was good for me. I admit it. I think it will definitely shift my self-discipline into high gear. He tried to take a bite of his food while I was talking, but I apparently didn't talk long enough for him to get it down. This goes hand in hand with your meditation problems too. Self-discipline is directly related. Swallow, to concentration. If you have poor concentration, you will likely have poor self-discipline, and vice versa. They are very much the same thing, only each affects a different time span. Concentration involves using your will to hold your mind on whatever you choose, for a given period of time. Self-discipline involves using your will to hold your mind in a certain direction for a longer time span, and thus achieving a specific result. The result could be physical, mental, or spiritual. "Could this wait till I'm done eating?" "Of course, Father, I didn't intend to." But he went on talking anyway. The most common factor here is using your will to direct the mind. Anything that strengthens the will, in either the area of concentration or self-discipline, will strengthen the ability in both areas. So you need to consider both. "I can wait, really, there's no problem." Concentration. "Oh, I was done anyway." Some meditation techniques are specifically designed to develop concentration. Most people don't realize just how bad their concentration is until they start doing a meditation that involves concentration. They are shocked at how out of control their own mind is, how much mental garbage there is in there, and how much jabber is constantly going on. You just can't seem to stop the jabber, and once you've noticed it, it can really amaze you. I was confronted with this problem of concentration, and my mind wandering, way back when I was a young. "Oh, what was I saying?" He was joking, but I just decided to bow out and let him finish his meal. Later that day, Mother Farida noticed me cursing beneath my breath when I was trying to meditate under an apple tree. "You are upset about something?" "Mother, I'm having a very hard time with my meditations. I just can't seem to concentrate and keep my mind on what I'm supposed to be thinking. It's very frustrating and I feel like I'll never get it." The separate self will rebel against the attempts to get control of the mind, and thus the monkey mind can seem to get worse, even though all the more effort is put forth to develop concentration. So many students get disillusioned and frustrated, thinking they are not getting anywhere. But this is just a phase. If you simply stay consistent, and persevere in your meditations, you will develop concentration, you will achieve your goals. Don't let the separate self use the frustration trick to throw you off. That is what it is trying to do, and apparently succeeding right at this moment. Are you maintaining your meditation schedule, and staying consistent? "Well, I missed some of my exercises." "I thought so. You must stay committed. Do not let up." "Let up? On my exercises?" "Let up on everything you do to transcend your separate self. On the consistency of your self-discipline. Strength of will. Consistency and perseverance are aspects of strength of will, willpower, or self-discipline. Developing and strengthening these aspects of will are something like safely developing a body. You must exercise on a regular schedule, applying and developing consistency. You must do it, even if it's hard because your undeveloped muscles are weak and it becomes painful, applying and developing perseverance. But while you must exercise to your maximum limit, you must also not overdo it. Thus, while you should have an overall goal or ideal of how you ultimately want your body to be, you must focus on specific little goals, little muscle groups and training parameters, in order to achieve the ideal. So perhaps I am trying too hard, to do too much, or expect too much right away. Perhaps. That is for Zane to determine. But definitely, do not get frustrated. It just feeds the selfish separate self and slows your progress. Relax, be kind and gentle with yourself, and just be consistent. More than anything else, sheer consistency will let your separate self know you are not going to give up. If you let the self know it will not win, it will just give up in time, and you will gain control of your own mind. Be moderate in all things. The children teach that moderation, coupled with consistency and perseverance, are the best way to ensure that you will achieve your goals. Put simply, don't bite off more than you can chew. Moderation. A smaller bite is easier to chew. But once you've chosen your bite, make sure you chew it properly, and finish it. Consistency and perseverance. Mother Farida went on. Like I said, the separate self rebels at attempts to discipline it. If you are not moderate in your attempts at self-discipline, its rebellion is extremely strong, and you are more likely to fail. Every time you fail at self-discipline, the separate self grows stronger and your power of will grows weaker. When you moderately discipline yourself, it is easier to discipline yourself because it is milder. And because it is easier, it is generally more successful, and this allows your strength of will to grow consistently. Every time you moderately apply self-discipline, your strength of will gets more powerful. Fasting, which is used for both purification and self-discipline, is like this. If you are using it for the development of self-discipline, you don't start with a 30 or 40-day fast. You start with a short fast, 1 day, or 3 days. You succeed in that, then the next time, your will is stronger. Then you can go 4 days, or 7. Then 10. If you were to start your first fast with 2 weeks, then fail, what have you done? Weakened your will and given more power to the separate self. Precisely. Whatever you do to discipline yourself, should be with such moderation and total commitment. Approaching the development of self-discipline in this way will one day result in your powers of will being rock hard. Then you can totally discipline the self in any way, at any time, with no problems. Later in the day, Zane gave me a reading list regarding my questions. Build strength of will slowly, 1 stone at a time. If one attempts to lift a stone larger than one's strength, it can crush you under its weight. The drop of water can carve the rock, the glacier can carve the mountain. Thusly do consistency and perseverance overcome all obstacles. In all things, be moderate. When the two minds oppose each other, neither's goal is achieved. Want what you want and tend to both branches and roots. The jellyfish that drifts with the tide is wiser than a man with no ideal. I thought over Mother Farida's advice, and got what I could understand at the time out of the ancient texts. I was soon applying myself consistently, but after I started actually noticing an improvement in my concentration, the dark forces threw a new challenge at me. Bugs. Bugs came out of everywhere, every time I started meditating. After this happened repeatedly, I went to Zane and told him about it. Ignore them, he said. Ignore them? But they fly around my head, up my nose, crawl on me, bite me. Ignore them. They are nothing but a test. If you can transcend it, and continue with your exercise, they will go away. If you fight it, and let them bother you, they will continue forever. It took a while. One time a whole swarm of tiny little bee-like things actually found me in an inner music room, and started stinging me. This doesn't happen to everyone, so relax. Although a few of my students did have to endure the same thing with normally placid little crickets, that came out and bit them every time they started meditation. The only cure? Whether it is bugs, or any other distractions, just hold to your concentration consistently, and eventually the distractions will give up and never bother you again. The big picture, setting your ideal. We have already covered this somewhat in another chapter, but it is a very important concept that is also pertinent here. An ideal is the encapsulation of the end result of all your goals, of everything you ultimately want to be, and most importantly, a way of being, all wrapped up in one symbolic concept. If the greatest thing you can achieve is universal consciousness, then the greatest ideal would be one of the universally conscious beings. Since your ideal is a way for you to be, it can be set in one concept of being, such as that exemplified in the lives of any of the enlightened ones, past or present. Choose whatever you are most familiar with or drawn to, Jesus, Buddha, Black Elk, or whomever. If you have a true teacher, that is the optimal choice. We have already discussed how what you think and do radically changes everything in your life. When you establish an ideal, and keep it in your conscious mind, it can have a powerful effect on your life. But this effect is only as strong as your application of the ideal in your life. So consider who or what is the ultimate you would have in your life, and in the lives of others. Once you determine your ideal, then close your eyes, meditate on it, contemplate it. Feel, and completely visualize being like your ideal, as if it were indeed real. This is one way to set your ideal. Getting the conscious and subconscious in sync. For anything to really be effective, including goal achievement, self-discipline, or ideals, the conscious and subconscious minds must work together. Many times a person makes major conscious mind decisions, but the programming of the subconscious mind is in conflict with those, and keeps working at counter purposes to the conscious goal. Since so much of what we think and do comes from the subconscious, this can totally nullify your conscious desires, and in fact, make things happen that are opposite to what you want. Properly setting your ideal will have an effect on both the conscious and subconscious realms of your being. For instance, a person may have decided they want a successful career, and they do all the right conscious things to make it happen. They get training, apply for work, etc. But if the subconscious is programmed for failure, the person will do things that counteract, and defeat the conscious goal. They may be stupid little things, like the slip of a word at the wrong time, or being late for an appointment, or even little physical screw-ups. It can defeat you in many ways. Programming your ideal. To get your ideal programmed into the subconscious, use the tools of affirmation, complete visualization, meditation, and if available, the Atlantean vibrational sounds. Once an ideal is fully programmed into the subconscious will work towards achieving it. This doesn't mean that you can sit back and let the subconscious do all the work for you. You must still consciously apply your ideal in all situations. Concentration and self-discipline comes into play again. When you have set your ideal, check up on yourself by keeping a list of your daily activities, and reviewing them daily to see how you are doing with living up to your ideal. Summary. Remember, if you have no ideal, you are like a piece of driftwood being tossed about by the tides of external forces, or one of those toys that moves on the floor in a random direction until it runs into something, upon which it turns around and moves in another direction until it runs into something else, etc., etc. If you have an ideal, but it's not in harmony with universal will, then your life is but a temporary illusion, the rewards of which are empty and negative. Only an ideal that is in harmony with the eternal universal flow brings lasting peace and fulfillment. Whatever your ideal is, self-discipline, consistency, and perseverance are determining factors in whether the manifestation of your ideal is great, has little effect, or fails to manifest altogether. Look at those who have excelled in their chosen directions. How do they do it? They have very definite goals and they work at it consistently. McKeel's favorite quote from the I Ching was always "Perseverance furthers." If someone else can do it, so can you. And what better reason could you have to exercise strict self-discipline and consistency, than for the goal of being a channel for the manifestation of the universal spirit?